Suppose that I entered my room and I can see everything dark because the light is not switched on. So what happens that I cannot see anything. I can barely walk because I'm not sure that if I will not collide with some object, if some table is placed or where the chair is placed, I'm not able to see anything. So what I will do? I will simply on my switch of light. So what happens when I click the switch of the light started glowing. So when the light started glowing, everything was visible. But why? Why it was not visible when the light was not on? And why it became visible when the light started glowing? So this is our session. So this is our session where we are going to learn why we cannot see an objects in night or in the objects in the dark, and why we can see the object in the bright side. So this is Omkar Padi and welcome to Talented Sir. So where you will get amazing content free of cost. So without wasting our time, let's start our session. So before starting our session, I would like to introduce two subjects. That is luminous object and a non-luminous object. As I told you that when I entered my home, I could not see anything. But when I switch on the light, I could see everything. Why? Because the tube light was emitting its own light, or it was creating its own light. So the object which creates their own light is known as a luminous object. For example, take this tube light or take our sun, which is creating their own light. But what happens that when I enter my house, I was not able to see anything because the light was not on. There was a table besides me, but I was not able to see it. Why? Because the table was not creating its own light. So what happens that the table or the object which is not creating their own light are known as non-luminous object. So why when the light was on, I can see the table or the chair. I told you that we can see the luminous object, but why we saw the non-luminous object when the light was turned on? When light was turned on, I was able to see the tables and chair. Why? They were not creating their own light also. So what happens, luminous object have a property to make their own light, and the non-luminous object has a property to reflect the light. You have heard about moon, that the moon reflects sunlight and give us the bright white color in our night. So what happens that this table when the light was coming, some light was falling on this table also. So what the table did, that it started to reflecting the light. So when it started reflecting the lights, we saw that the table is also visible. So I will take up my second case. So what happened that I am again coming inside my home, but with my pet cat. So what happens that my light was also not on. I was not able to see anything, but my cat was able to see everything. So what happened that in a human eye, rods are present, and in an animal eye, or we can tell specifically to a cat's eye. So what happens? Cones is present. So what is cones? So what is rods and what are cone? So we will study that also. So what happens that think that here is apple. So what happens when the light is falling on that apple? So what property apple has? It is red in color. It has atoms which are red in color. And what happens that the light, and we know that the light is white in color. So what happens that when the white light hit the apple, so what happens, the white light is comprised of 7 more Vibgyor color. So what happens that it has the red color atoms. So what happens when the atoms of the lights comes with the atoms with the red, so they scatter the color. But the blue color or the indigo color which is present in the white light will not scatter because it didn't find a good partner for scattering the light. So when it was scattering the light, so the apple, so red atom and the red atom scattered the light. So when they were scattering the red light, my rods were able to see that light, red light. So this was that I was able to see. But my cat, what about my cat? So simply about the cones is just directly opposite about the rods. So what does the rods help to see when the luminous object is there or when the non-luminous object is reflecting our light. Similarly, the opposite is when similar to my cat, the cat has some rods also and some cones also, but the rods are not powerful. So what happens that when the luminous object was reflecting the light, it was able to see some effectively, but when the luminous object was off, my cat was able to see everything because of the cones. Cones are very effective in nights also. So this was the reason that why we cannot see at night and in the dark, or why we can see in the morning or in the bright side, and what are rods, what are cones, what are luminous object and what are non-luminous object, and many more that we learned in the session. So stay safe and stay at your home.